I guess just to preface, sorry everyone for the late start. We did have our internet and phones and everything were down here, so everything's up and running now. So hopefully it's smooth from here on out. So I think Lori will let us know when we're ready to start the live stream.
Oh, we're missing Raymond.
Yeah, they may have left and come. We're good to go, Kevin.
Okay, thank you very much. I'd like to welcome everybody to the City of Nanaimo Design Advisory Panel meeting for Thursday, March 10th, 2022. And before we get going, before I get the meeting to order, I just want to warn everybody, I'm doing my Zoom meeting from my cell phone, so I don't have the luxury of seeing everybody's faces. So if you want to say something, you can't hold up your hand. You really have to kind of jump in with your voice. And when the vote comes up, I will rely on Caleb to tabulate the vote and let us know if anybody is in all favor or opposed or whatnot. So, and then, yeah, like I said, if you have anything to say, you kind of have to jump in. Then I see your screen as well. So, item number one is we will call the meeting to order and just remind people that the meeting is live streamed and the video is recorded for the public. Number two is the introduction of late items. Does anybody have anything to add? I'm thinking about item 5. Tony, do you want to add discussion about chair?
Yeah, through the chair, I'd like to ask the staff if we could, if the staff could look into with legislative services or whoever, as to whether we are allowed to rotate chairs, so each takes a turn, that kind of thing, or whether we need a co-chair formally appointed in case the chair is away for whatever reason, such as today. So things like that, because I know from experience that some municipalities don't allow a change of chair during the year term once they've been voted in, kind of thing. But perhaps Nanaimo is a little more flexible. So anyway, I think that's something that we would like to do if it's if it's allowable. We'd like to be able to each take a turn on occasion.
Okay, so unless anybody has objections, I'll go into item 3, which is the adoption of the agenda with adding to number 5 on the agenda, discussion about chair procedures. So can I get somebody to make a motion to accept the adopt the agenda as amended with changes to item 5?
So moved.
Seconder?
Second.
Okay, Jason seconds. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So Caleb, I'm relying on you here, buddy.
It was unanimous.
Unanimous, good. Okay, so then we'll go right into presentations. Our first presentation on item 4A is development permit application 1259 at 501 Prideaux Street, and that's going to be introduced by Caleb Horn.
Yes, thank you, Chair. As noted, the first application, development permit 1259 at 501 Prideaux Street, is for a multifamily residential building, 3 stories with 24 dwelling units. The existing zoning is the Old City Mixed Use DT8 zone, and the relevant design guidelines are the general DPA design guidelines and the Old City Multifamily Residential Design Guidelines. As part of this proposal, there have been basically 2 variances. One is regarding the front yard setback, although it is noted twice here because there are separate setbacks for the first story and for the stories above the first story. And the second is for maximum building height, and that is to go from 10.5 meters to 11 meters. And then with that, I will turn it over to the applicants to begin their presentation.
Okay. So Raymond, you have your team here, and if you can introduce everybody from your team and then do your presentation. and share your screen, please.
Sure. Atha's going to do the presentation. So actually for both projects, worked on both of those. We got Kate here. Stefan?
This is Scott.
Where? Oh, I see. Oh, everybody's moving around
Scott
on my screen. Yeah. Scott Stevenson and the owner, I think, was here a minute ago,
Yes.
but I don't see him right now.
Oh, he's
Oh, there he is in the top left. Okay. Everybody's in a different order from last time. Sure. Okay, I'll let you go.
Okay. Interrupt me if you want. Your screen. Okay. Hi, everyone. This is a short presentation. Hopefully, can everyone see my screen?
I can, yeah.
Yes. Okay. Perfect. So this is a short presentation. Hopefully, we prepared for 501 Prudhoe's multifamily residential project. For some reason, my arrow key is not working. Oh, okay, there you go. So the subject property is a corner lot abutting Albert on northwest and Prudhoe Street on northeast. Looking at the lot from the survey plan, you can notice irregularity of the lot shape, which definitely challenging, and especially when the edge fronting the street is narrower than what a standard width of a lot can facilitate in terms of proportion of unit sizes. Also, the required setback and the city's statutory right-of-way, which eventually resulted in a skinnier and trimmed proportion of the building with unusual, complicated types of challenges in terms of circulation, accessibility, and building settings. And furthermore, the right-of-way and additional residential rear setback takes up a sizable portion of the land and carves out the lot to more awkward proportion, which sets a new sets of challenges to situate the parking area to facilitate what's required for multifamily residential development, which has always been challenging. However, the site is characterized as Nanaimo Downtown Old City Mixed-Use Zone, DTA8, and it's in a close proximate to all essential amenities and convenience store connected through proper transit system. It's on a route to university, which takes about 20 to 25 minutes, either on foot or using public transportation. Probably 10 to 12 minutes away from thrifty foods and personal care needs, and 15 minutes away from Harbor and Central Parks. This convenience makes it an excellent opportunity to provide a convenient living structure, most likely to a new couple or individual working in central Nanaimo, or even college student or workers. This project, I guess we believe that project will promote a desirable place to live and perhaps create a healthy sense of community and promote a positive neighborhood and a nice promenade. The site has been sitting empty for a while, probably around 40 years and plus 40 years, and is currently used as a surface parking area and shelter for homeless. And recently, the property received official complaints that people have been occupying inside the property for a purpose of temporary sheltering, dwelling, camping, and overnight adobe. And this gave this gave us additional perimeter to incorporate security and safety aspect to the design. And this is a photo taken from inside the lot looking north, and another shot looking towards east of Prudhoe Street. And this is standing on the intersection of Prudhoe and Albert. And looking east from Albert to and Prudhoe Street intersection. Looking south from Albert and Prudhoe Street intersection. You can somehow see a slight hint of ocean, probably can be seen from top corner units. So we started looking at the potential of having the different challenges, but taking advantage of being a corner lot. The area of the lot is adequate, but it's a challenging shape. So we've pushed the idea to go underground to allocate all the parking stalls as a part of screening the parking from the frontage. And having all the parking underground is a perfect, I guess, visual screening of the parking from the street and minimize the pedestrian and vehicle conflict. The idea is to leave, after we laid out the footprint of the buildings on the ground floor, the idea is to leave as much common area as possible and create warmth entrance for both pedestrian and also access for vehicle and drop-off. And we extruded the footprint to accommodate a 3-story building and to increase the density and take an advantage and maximize the potential of the property. We extended vertically over the driveway and the pedestrian entrance and overhung the massing over the common space, liberating the ground to protect the ground amenity spaces from wet and winter seasons. And this is an element we thought mostly to prioritize people's livability needs and social life. The intention in the site design is also to maximize greenery space for the tenants to play and enjoy, and also some sort of privacy to the ground space. We provided seating, benches, shading, and trees that makes this space nice getaway or social space, which will be illustrated in the landscape design. And part of the idea of the massing is to respect the views from the neighboring sites without compromising the visual from the proposed development. The adjoining corner of the building adjacent to the neighboring site is set back furthermore by around 1 meter. What's required in the bylaws to adopt a setback sympathetic to the existing streetscape and respect the views without compromising the access to the sunlight. And to respond to the traditional residential neighborhood guideline, we emphasize the character of the building to incorporate pitched roofs. So we extruded these masses to implement those pitch roofs within it. The facade of the building is treated with the stepped volumes, and where we needed to mitigate the height in proportion to the width of the building. And the depth of the facade has been stated with different levels and differentiated with contrast colors, material selection. This is basically elaborated by balcony projections. And this is the final massing of the building. And this is a conceptual, or not conceptual, this is a rendering of the final product. The concept is rooted deeper into to give a value from a basic, simplest ideas and for simple and economical construction system. And the render is also emphasizes the massing expression of the building, complementing to its surrounding. It also illustrates the overall facade colors in the scheme, which incorporated soft, natural color and low maintenance wood-like sidings and applied with natural, or I would say neutral vertical gray siding, expressing the building space and edges. We are proposing a homogeneous facade treatment mixed with a classic look of traditional form and similar to a kind of relate to a townhousey look with a pitch roof and imposing balconies that adds a sense of privacy and ownership. The simple facade treatment helps the longevity of the project in terms of maintenance and durability. and lowers the strata fees down the road by preventing adding more complexity and detailing of the structure of the building. The common areas pedestrian drop-off entrance is part of a design attempt to leave as much as open area as possible, as we mentioned earlier, and underneath the overhang mass of the building, provided with aluminum powder coated finished doors or gate for both pedestrian and driveway, allow transparency into the site and security for the tenant in response to the staff comments. The characteristic of the building shows the classic contemporary architecture with a hint of contemporary element outline, which is expressed with distinguished clear massing and exposed wood-like finishes. And we also incorporated landscape around the building and allowed the required residential setback plus additional setback to mitigate the overlooking on the east elevation on the neighboring site. The main facade on Albert Street is distinguished by these two large abstract roof and fins that extend all the way down to the ground, which opens up the main street, opens up towards the main street and imposes a clear presence on the road. And in between those two masses or elements, we have created a void that leads to the main entry from ground level while maximizing natural light into the corridors on each levels. It also projects artificial light during the night to identify the main entrance. And while the narrow front on Albert Street and additional or the required statutory right-of-way and residential rear yard setback determined the street fronting treatment approach while keeping the facade to flow in a similar rhythm overall without stepping back further on the first story. And I guess it was also part of the necessity to avoid a structural complexity and as we mentioned before, to add longevity to the building envelope while responding to the overall character and continuity of design treatment everywhere. To elaborate this point, the design of facade fronting Albert Street has been carefully considered, and given the various challenges of the property setting, the proposed design initially addresses the prominent presence of the building and the main street compared to the initial proposed design approach as you see in this image. So this is again the main entrance, and as a response to the city's comment on the main facade fronting Albert Street. Again, the building material has been selected to give a predominantly low maintenance exterior with wood accent to give warmth and welcoming every season. So this is a floor plan of the underground parking or parkade, which allowed us, by having that, allowed us to benefit from the additional density to maximize efficiency of the lot. And this is a site plan showing in detail building footprint, driveways, common areas, and amenities. We're proposing a strata units mixed of 22 single bedroom and 2 bedroom units. And due to the unusual site orientation shape and the slight slope towards the intersection, and especially the major site fronting edge being narrow to accommodate double loaded modules. And this is a typical floor plan for second and third. And this is an example or a rendering of the largest unit interior space that shows high vaulted ceiling and neutral colors to respond to the exterior treatment. Here's a more detailed 2D elevations of the facade, again showing the incorporated color scheme and of soft natural tone, and that blends I guess, perfectly in with the landscape. And these are the inner facades, southeast and east elevations. And while we tried to eliminate any variance required as much as possible, we came across two variances. Front setback variance due to adopted statutory right-of-way required by the city, and half a meter of height variance to accommodate the traditional look and character of the building and overcome the slight slope site. I guess I'm done with this part. I'm not sure if shall landscape continue or.
Yes, if one of you wants to do a presentation for the landscape concept, that'd be perfect. Thanks.
Okay.
So we think we have it on ours, or unless you want to control your own slides.
Yes, we do have it on ours.
Yeah.
Okay. Actually, Atta, if you don't mind showing the next one.
Sure.
Sure, thank you. Okay, well, thank you, Chair and panel, and I am happy to present the landscape for this development. So, and I'm Kate Steffiu, just for the record, from Kinship Design Art Ecology. The development for 501 Prideaux Street proposes to transform a paved lot that currently functions as a vehicle marshalling area into a vibrant multifamily residential building. The design of the landscape amplifies this introduction of life and vitality into the neighborhood with a sensitive treatment of the streetscape that creates strong visual interest at the pedestrian scale, characterized by formalized layers of indigenous and ornamental plantings and common areas that unify public, semi-public, and private common spaces. The design concept, which I called the niche, relies on a generous planting scheme that creates lush living systems filling every available niche with a profusion of plants arranged in formal linear stripes to accentuate colors, textures, scale, to support life from the soil to the treetops and to anchor Prideaux and Albert Street. The landscape will fill the streetscape with living elements, just as the development brings life into the community. So the key components of the landscape design include a striking planting palette that will evolve into a self-sustaining urban ecosystem, a strong presence of street trees located within the parcel boundaries to support a healthy urban environment. And I've chosen a variety of a mix of different deciduous trees to fit within the different constraints of the site and to add visual interest and color throughout the seasons. Thirdly, we have our main entrance walkway off of Prideaux Street. And this is highlighted with a change in paving. So we're proposing concrete pavers to further emphasize the entryway. And this leads into the covered common space, which provides a comfortable resting, gathering, waiting area. I've tried to pull the landscape into this area as much as possible. We are over parkade, so to rely on planters and to just soften that underneath area. And we have our temporary bikes. Sorry, what do I call that? Bike rack. Thank you. Then from that covered common area, the design we lead into the common area for the residents, which set away from the main street and is immersed in this lush environment. And to mitigate the large retaining we need to do at that edge of property, we have a second retaining wall, and we're sloping the landscape up to the back edge. So it will step down into this really nice, I think, lush private space. and we will include screening at the end of the driveway entrance to manage lighting and for privacy. You'll also see there's the design includes a number of different benches and sort of a fun, more platform style benching where I could imagine lying down, using as a table, just a flexible type space. We've also considered pet owners in our common area providing dog wash and included bollard lighting back here for nighttime wayfinding. So we do have a perimeter path through the site that lead residents out to Albert Street as well through the back of the property. And I think I'll leave it at that. I'll just make one note. These drawings, I've only included lighting in the back area, but our intention is to also include, I think, low bollard lighting along Prideaux and Albert Street, just at the patio entries and the main entrance and the 3 entries to the property as shown in the rendering that Ada showed us. And I'll stop there and happy to answer any questions or respond to anything for greater clarity. Thank you.
So Raymond, anything else you want to add to that?
They both presented it quite well. Yeah, it's a little bit difficult to maybe understand the 3D nature of the rear yard spaces, and given the context that we have, right? We've been to the site, it's not very attractive right now. One of the things we're just looking at is just how to deal with kind of street people and homelessness in the area. So that's part of the reason why of the transparent gates at both entrances from the rear yard. So those are things that we're looking at, and likewise the parkade is gated as well. So yeah, I think space could be quite. It's a little bit unusual in terms of a large covered area when you come into an entrance to your building, but again with lighting and ceiling treatment and textures and pavers and that kind of thing, that it can be quite a different kind of space. So it's not too often you get a large covered outdoor space in a project. So I remember going to school in Nanaimo when I was a kid, and we had this really large outdoor play space. So it's just something that we used a lot as kids. So again, with younger families or something that'd be potentially living here, that'd be a kind of a bonus space for them. So it's not meant to be parked or anything like that. It's just basically drop off and access garbage, and that kind of thing. So it's a public amenity or a private amenity for the people that live there as well.
Okay. Thanks for the presentation. Kate, I would probably recommend that you stick around for any questions first before you have to remove yourself in a conflict. So first of all, I would like to ask any of the panel members if they have any questions for the city staff. If you do, shout out or put up your hand for Caleb to see. Hearing none, is that correct, Caleb?
I see none.
Okay, perfect. So then I would open up to questions first for the landscape architect, Kate, first. So if anybody has any questions, I will start first with Tony.
Oh, I had some things to say about the building design. I don't really have anything to say about the landscape other than compliments. I like the way that you've dealt with the tricky slope bits around the, I don't know the orientation, but the left side of the site, the interior of the L, and coming around that outdoor space near the entrance, the covered space you're just talking about looks very promising. But just want to make sure Kate's got enough trees. Being facetious there, but no, I'd like to reserve my comments on the building design. So I don't really have anything to add here. It looks great.
Okay, thanks, Tony. Okay. Angela. regarding landscape concepts, so Kate can just remove herself, and then we can deal with form and care.
Okay, yeah. Thank you, Kevin, for that. And thank you to the applicants for your presentation. It's a very challenging site, and I think Kate's done a wonderful job at niching as much landscaping into this site as possible. Having a wonderful amenity space, creative amenity space, and the dog wash area will be a really nice addition for those dog owners. Sort of fun and purposeful outdoor space. It sounds like it's going to be very colorful and a nice place to walk past on Albert and Prudhoe. I did have one comment as it pertains to landscaping and the Old City Design Guidelines. And it was just, and I don't know if it was considered, but just along the border of Prudhoe and Albert, the design guidelines do reference having some kind of continuous hedge or screening wall, something to that nature. And I sort of envisioned possibly, because it is such a sloped grade from the road to the building, it almost does make sense to have some sort of a border, maybe concrete, low retaining wall along Prudhoe and Albert, just holding in the soil and then putting all of your wonderful landscaping into that. And I don't know, I'm just envisioning it just sort of giving the landscaping a nicer, tighter border, and just being in line with the design guidelines a bit more. So that was my one comment. I don't know if you want to comment back to that or just have panel members comment to that.
Do you want me to comment?
Absolutely, Kate.
Okay,
Jump
sure.
in.
Sure. Yes, I was anticipating the comment as well. So I'm obviously always open to anything that will improve the design. I was hopeful with this site because I don't have a lot of land to work with, that I could create that formality with the linear layered planting, and you would get a sense of that feeling from the plants being linear and layered, and that maybe that from my perspective that would be enough to nod towards the design guidelines, and it would reduce the amount of hard infrastructure on the site. But always open to anything. But that was my approach. I was trying not to add more than I needed.
I think architecturally we were fine with it as well, because we had a slope site that we're going up to it, so we didn't feel that needed to have that so much as opposed to a flat lot. So again, we want to show off all the landscaping. So
Okay. Anything else, Angela, you want to add?
No, that was it. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks, Angela. Next up, Tyler.
No questions or comments on the landscape. Thanks, Kevin.
Okay, thanks, Tyler. Jason.
No comments or questions at this point.
Okay.
Thank you.
And Jill.
Kate, I think I just want to reiterate Angela's comment of very positive, purposeful aspects to the landscape. I think you guys have dotted the I's and crossed the T's in terms of, if it needs to have enhanced paving, it's there, and lighting. So anything functional like a wall, if it's going to help retain the soil, I have no trouble with additional hardscape. Appreciate the dog wash. And, as always, I will always lean toward I enjoyed seeing both your wooden screen and your wooden wall. And, I would just comment on the ability to see in the site as well, and see movement within the site in the areas where you're screening period. So thanks very much.
Thanks, Jill. And I would just, I think there's nobody else, right? There's just the 7 of us, right? Yeah, so I would just jump in and say, Kate, you did a great job with what Raymond left you to work with. You did a masterful job with the landscape concept. I really like the dense palette of trees and your tree palette. Anytime I see not only a few, but a lot of the snowbell, Japanese snowbell trees are a beautiful tree that aren't seen enough in this town. So anytime I see that, I'm really happy. There was only one other thing. There were 2 other staff comments regarding tree locations to ensure they don't interfere with the street frontage, and also to ensure that the minimum landscape treatment level is provided around the outdoor refuse areas. Do you just want to comment on that, Kate?
Sure. And yes, I will double check my tree locations along Albert Street for that. And we will pull them a little bit closer to the building if I am in conflict. And regarding the garbage, because it's set down, and at that point it's over the parkade, I felt that the exterior planting on the edges and then the lower planting around it would be enough visually to the adjacent properties, and that so I'm hopeful. I was a little bit constrained about having to build up that area around the garbage as a planter versus just on slab, and I was trying to keep it to just on slab. But if the panel, of course, feels it's not enough, we can make adjustments. But from the neighboring properties, there is a very strong edge of planting very close to that garbage enclosure.
Okay, that answers my question. I don't really want. I really can't, and actually maybe Jill can, but I don't think any of us can really comment on whether or not those 2 staff comments need to be addressed and put into recommendations. But I think we would trust you to work with city staff to make sure that those are addressed. And
I acknowledge, I think a section there would have been helpful for you, and just a timing issue.
Okay,
yeah.
Perfect. Thanks, Kate. I guess you can kindly remove yourself from the panel now as a conflict, but thanks for your presentation. Unless else has any other questions?
Thank you very much.
Okay, thanks, Kate. Okay, so moving on now, we'll open up again, and now we can deal with form and character and other things. So I will start with Jill this time.
Well, thank you, Kevin. I don't see everyone else.
Can we stop
I don't need
screen sharing? Can we stop the screen sharing?
There's some bodies. Okay. Well, I'm basically going to be commenting. Thank you all very much for your presentation. First of all, I think the modeling was excellent in helping us understand. I know the site. I'm in the neighborhood. I understand the constraints. But I must say that I am struggling with the setback on Albert. And without giving too much context, I observe the way people drive on main roads. Today, I was nearly hit twice crossing at a marked crossing walk with overhead flashing. And so giving up 2.32 meters on Albert and 7.5 feet is significant. And I know that you have significant constraints, but that's my point of view. And from the site design point of view, and I guess that's where I'll leave it.
Do you want to comment on the height variance as well?
I would support the height. I would support the height variance. It's minimal. It's minimal. But the
Okay.
the setback on a major arterial is of concern.
Okay. Thanks, Jill. I'll go with Jason next, please.
All right, thank you. Thank you for the presentation. I actually quite like the building. I like the rhythm and how you've been able to, modulate the scale with those repetitive elements. I appreciate that quite a bit. I don't have any problem with the height variance either. I do agree with Jill about the front setback variance. I don't mind the second and third story variants. I'm okay with the massing supporting the idea of kind of a more regularized street wall. But just like one of the properties we reviewed last week, my concern was that because of the street widening and that it's not about density, it's about the quality of the public realm. And if there was not that the dual setbacks, if it was just a regular front street setback, the amount that you were setting into it would be nominal, and I would be in full support of it. But because of the two stepbacks for the street widening, it effectively precludes the city from adjusting the width of the street while still maintaining a consistent street presence along there. So I do not support the front setback either because of that comment. I think there are ways to potentially mitigate it with density on the site elsewhere. I see that you were right up to your FSR, so you did a really good job at squeezing in every single square inch that you could. There might be ways to mitigate it, but just because of that one component, I really am concerned about providing a quality public realm space. So that's all my comments.
Just to keep you there, Jason, are you not supporting both front setbacks, or just?
No, just the one. I don't mind the setback violation for the second and third floor.
Okay.
I don't mind that they're aligned. It's just the general setback, the extent of the setback into the road widening.
Okay, thanks, Jason. And Jill, just to go back to you, can you just reiterate that as well? Is it both front setbacks, or is it just the lower floor one, the first story?
Well, Kevin, they appear to be.
There's a variance of 2 points.
Yeah, I know there is, but that's just because the facade changes. That's just because the building steps back.
So you're opposed to both of those variances, correct?
You know what? It's hard for me to. Yeah, I guess I am. Okay. And I think Jason articulated it well. I'm concerned about the public realm.
Okay. Thank you. So next, I'd like to ask Tyler to jump in, please.
Thanks, Kevin. Thanks to everyone for the presentations. Although I don't get a vote, I fully support both variances here, or all the variances here, and also I just think it's a very well done project. So thank you. I thought it was all very sharp and looked great. So thanks so much.
Thank you, Tyler. Angela.
Thank you, Kevin, and thank you again to the presenters. Again, I just wanted to compliment the architects and site design for this, putting this project together on this extremely complicated site. For those reasons, because it is such a complicated site, and they've already been very creative, and I can imagine there's been some a lot of effort to try and meet setbacks. As long as city staff are good with the setback variances to their SRWs, I'd be in support of the variances, as well as the height variance. So that's my position on the variances. As far as the architecture goes, I do like the form and character. I feel like it does almost feel sort of chapel-like, which in Nanaimo, downtown Nanaimo, there's quite a few little chapels around, and it sort of just has that cute, quaint chapel vibe to it. Reminded me a little bit of Amsterdam downtown on the canals, the row housing, the multicolored row housing, which made me think, maybe this development could use a bit more vibrancy in the color. But that is just side comment. So yeah, I believe this is an awesome project for this community and infill project. So well done, and thank you.
Thank you, Angela. Tony?
Thank you, Gavin. Overall, very well designed project. Form and character is good. It's very screamingly contemporary, but it has that iconic residential gable roof form to fit into just about any residential neighborhood. So well done there. Nice rhythm, a nice variety, I thought, of colors and textures and that sort of thing. The two areas I had a little concern or questions over. One was again on the two insides of the L, because I don't know my orientation from the drawing, but they basically have, I think, either flat or mansard roofs, and I just wondered, like they really look like the back of the building, and I just wondered whether you couldn't, force a couple more of those gable forms to kind of mitigate those sort of poorer sides of the building, if I could phrase it like that. And then my second comment, I'm wrapping my head around the fact that you seem to have two main entrances, which I guess visitors got to be buzzed in. Then that solves that problem in terms of orientation or not going in the right door or something like that, because both entrances look very good and are very inviting as entrances. So that's just a logistics thing. But in terms of the main entrance, that whole entry walkway I find intriguing, and it's either going to work like a hot damn or it's going to be a complete disaster. And I kept having a hard time kind of visualizing how you would go through an outer door or gate. I'm not quite sure from the drawings. And then you go down obviously a nice textured pathway, but you have to penetrate so far in to get to actually the front door of the lobby. And I just wondered whether just beyond those front lobby doors, you couldn't have something like a wall or with the name of the building or big arrow, I don't know what, but something that kind of suggests that you're not sort of just wandering on this path and hope to stumble across the main lobby doors if you've never been there before. I really don't know quite how that's going to work, and I just wondered what your thoughts were, and whether you could comment on my 2 points: the roof around the sides of the building and that main entrance walkway, please.
Well, Ed can start. I can chip in too, so I have a few thoughts on both of those.
Yeah, sure. Okay.
Or I can start first, doesn't matter. So.
Yeah, you can go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, on the back, I guess we weren't that concerned about it because I guess potentially, even though it shows green in the renderings that we have, that there's more the likelihood of another building going in there. Again, because we have very little room, we just kept it at that. We also have a lot of the rooftop mechanical equipment that would be along the back side of that. So that was where we're proposing, because it's near the elevator shaft and that kind of thing. Again, there are relatively, and there's no vaulted area for vaulted ceilings necessarily for those spaces so much. So in terms of the main entrance, Adam may have a different view.
Could I just jump in and say that? It's not a sort of deal breaking or anything, but I just, it just seems a little bit, sort of secondary to the rest of the building. I can see why it is. So that's not the main point. And just as a complete aside, I was glad to see that you are in fact using vaulted spaces inside there. Sometimes they're just faked, and these are going to be dynamite top floor suites. No question about it.
Sure.
Sorry.
I guess we have two entrances. Basically, the main one off of Albert Street is the main entrance, the visitor entrance, and the other one is really away from more of the casual users who are using the spaces, going to the garbage bins before they go out, walking out from the street that end. I mean, you could argue we just wanted to have at least an address on there. I mean, it's a public. Somebody could say, well, maybe it's a little too accented or accentuated or whatever, but because we have two driveways, we needed to make sure it was clear that we didn't want people walking through the driveways to go in when we have potentially a car that could be moving around back in there, or a garbage truck or that kind of thing. It's very tricky to have a driveway that goes down and one that goes into the site side by side, because we're going to be quite constrained on the actual allowance that we're allowed to cut into the curb, right? So we got some movement going on, so we wanted to make sure that it was very distinct that people were supposed to be on the right hand or the north side of that part of the building to get in. So that's kind of where that's at least how I looked at it. So any other thoughts, Ada?
No, I guess that was what the intent of the design of those side entrances.
Yeah.
Okay, Tony, anything else you want to add?
No, just in terms of general form and character, I think this is an excellent design. I really, really like it. And I think it's going to be a great addition to that part of town.
So, did you have any recommendations regarding the entries or those inset walls that kind of reflect to Albert Street, whether or not you wanted the roofs and or walls enhanced on those? Or is it just a comment?
No, my main thing, I think, was to really understand better that main entrance walkway to the lobby, because I was just having a hard time visualizing it. I understand what the architecture is trying to do, but I just wasn't clear.
Okay, so there was no recommendations that you really had then. Okay, thank you, and I will continue then. And regarding the variances, Tony?
Oh, absolutely no problem with the height variance, and I initially had no concern about the setback one until I heard a couple of people commenting on it that seem to know the area a little better than I do. So I would kind of defer to their view on that, and sort of abstain if I can from that particular variance discussion. Okay,
perfect. Thank you. And I'll just jump in right there on the variances, and I don't have any issue with the variances. I think even though the building is sited closer than what's permitted, only a few blocks away, there's buildings that pretty much have almost zero front yard setbacks, that have no landscaping along the front other than maybe some planters. And I think with what Kate has presented with her landscape concept, I think I fully supported it. To be able to achieve what she has around all four sides in a landscape concept, it's a matter of what he sacrificed. Because for me, the one thing that I was really impressed with Raymond and his team is they worked almost to the maximum floor area ratio that's permitted for this project, and we need that. And I feel strongly that. With their effort that they made, got all the parking underground, and what they did with the floor area ratio, how they sited the building on a difficult site, I fully support the variances, but we'll leave that for discussion for later. But aside from that, Raymond and your team, I think what you did with the form and character was really, really good. The only thing that was different for me, only concerns I really had were the Albert Street elevation. The renderings we had show that inside the gate, one of the gables, it was the same color as the fascias. And I noticed in your new modelings that you have the wood inside it now, which looks so much better. So that alleviates my concerns with that. I had a similar concern that Tony had regarding the inset walls and even the roof structure over the elevator, and if there's any ways that you can enhance those walls and do something with the roof to more reflect the other elevations. And even though Tony didn't recommend it, if he wants to jump back in on this, I think there might be ways, even though in your modeling you show that there's a bunch of trees in that front corner of the adjacent property, which may in fact be true. But in the future, because it's an area of that site that might not be able to be used. But I think we never know what's going to happen with that site. It could be trees, it could be something that can block the walls. But aside from that, the only other detail that you have to deal with is how you deal with the gutters along those sloped roofs, because you show them as one continuous form, and obviously that's not going to happen. So it's a matter of how that's going to look. The color choice is going to match. The color choice is going to match the roof and the cladding source. So did you give that any thought, Raymond? You guys there? Can you hear me?
Raymond appears to have left the meeting, actually.
Oh, okay. So
maybe Atar can comment on that.
And Atar?
Yeah, I guess we thought about the gutters and I guess the last discussion with Raymond regarding the gutter is to be incorporated more into the design in terms of when we get into the detail of the gutter, and it should match what we are proposing in terms of the look of the building and the character without compromising what we are showing now.
Yeah, because it's one thing that you could envision like a standing seam metal roof or a metal cladding roof running down into a metal cladding on the walls and carrying the water all the way down into some sort of catchment rain garden. But chances are that's not going to happen, right? So it is a detail that you have to look at, and it's gonna change the appearance of those roofs and how they reflect to the wall. And I don't think you're going to put a hidden gutter on there. It's going to obviously be probably an aluminum gutter, just to get that little bit more of a continuous flow. But that's my only concern. Anytime I see this type of structure, and I like the look of it, but unless it's a real small area where you don't put a gutter on it, you have the water run off, it is a detail that you have to deal with, and it does affect the form and character quite a bit because you have so many roofs that are like that. But all I can say is, aside from that, the only thing is I would like to recommend what Tony commented on but didn't recommend was to look at ways to enhance the inset walls and roof of the Albert facing elevations. And if somebody else wants to jump in and comment on it, we can. So that said, does anybody else on the panel have any other comments or suggestions that they want to make? Hearing none. So then we have three things that we have to consider. One is the variances. There was, I believe, only one other recommendation by Angela that was looking at ways of incorporating retaining and terracing along the Prideaux Street edge. Is that what you're really considering, Angela?
Yeah, it was really providing some kind of continuous low retaining wall or screen, just along Prideaux and Albert, just to contain the landscaping, not to take away from the landscaping, but just to provide some kind of buffer along that.
Okay, so it's along both. So do you think that, in keeping it in terms, looking at ways to retain and terrace the street edge along Albert Street and Prideaux Street, I think that's general enough?
Yeah.
Or would you like to reword it?
I don't know that they'd need to terrace it necessarily. If the retaining wall is there, it Kate's already got a nice sort of terraced retaining landscape. So
if we say retain or terrace or something like that, or look at ways to work the retaining?
Yeah, potential for hardscaped retaining.
Can I make a comment?
Yes.
Sorry, I got kicked out again, so I didn't. I missed out from After you talked about the rendering on Kevin's comment about the wood better than the new, and then I didn't hear anything until the aluminum gutter. So hopefully Atta heard about that. So one of the things I wanted to mention, if Scott is still here, maybe he's not, or maybe he got kicked out too, was just a discussion about the future works along Albert Street, because it was kind of changing back and forth when we first started it. So that would have a little bit of an impact about how that road or the future of that road interface with the boulevard and everything would be a little bit different. So I think that was part of our issue as well during the design. So in terms of the continuous edge along the streetscape, and I'm not sure how Kate feels about it, and we may have talked about it, but whether we had something, not so much a hard edge, but more of a border. Like a lot of houses in the Old City Quarter have fences or pickets or something like that. So maybe there's something, an opportunity that's more of, and I'm not sure how the owners feel about it, but more of a wrought iron kind of look that's a low fence along there that way. And then we can see everything, all the landscaping still, but it keeps people out and away from it if that's kind of an edge of what you're looking for. So.
Well, Angela, you're more concerned about the hardscape along the street edges, is that correct?
Yeah, it's just, the guidelines talk about having some kind of continuous fence, wall, or hedge, but because it is such a sloped grade there, it just seems to lend itself to having some kind of very low retaining wall, not to take away from the landscaping, but just to sort of provide some kind of an edge and maybe enhance the landscaping to a degree, and just you just have to fill in a little bit more with more soil, and just maybe the landscaping that's already there, not take away from it, but it just gets raised up slightly.
Yeah. So if we kind of, I guess, copy what the staff comment says, and it's consider landscape design elements for both street frontages as recommended by the Old City guidelines, and not getting into examples, and let city staff work with the applicant. Would that work for you?
Yeah.
Okay. So we'll put that one in, and then hopefully Lori picked that up. Other than that, the only other one was, and again, once we get a motion on the floor, we can discuss it, because most people didn't get to jump in on this one, was looking at recommending methods to enhance the roof and wall facades along the inset walls of the, I guess we would call it the west elevations. So that was the third one. And then there's the variances, and it looks like we're pretty even on that. So what I would recommend is somebody jump in and make a motion with those three things, the variances and also the street edge, to make a motion. And then if we get a seconder, we can open it for discussion and then have a vote. Nobody wants to make a motion.
Well, Tony here, I'll make a motion just to get the discussion going and so forth. I think probably we want to separate those three items out and sort of vote on them separately, maybe, because only one or two people either raised them or were concerned about
I think we need to get a proper motion on the floor with everything involved, and if it gets defeated, we recreate it like we did last week. There's nothing wrong with that. And it's just a matter of those two main things, and then the variances, whether we support both of them or just one of them. I think that's probably the route we want to take. So,
okay, well, I'll make the motion then to get things rolling as you described it originally.
So you make a motion to accept it with the all three variances, looking at incorporating or looking at considering the landscape design elements for both street frontages as recommended by the Old City guidelines, and also the recommendation to look at enhancing the roof and wall facades along the inset walls.
Yeah, but just to be clear, not to be irritating or anything, but if there's a seconder and then we vote, are we voting on the entire thing? Because we might agree with one of the comments and not one of the others. I couldn't be clear on how that works.
just so you know, Tony, once we get a seconder, the floor is open for discussion. So everybody can jump in and say whether they agree with it, whether they're going to vote against it. This is all part of the process. So it's a starting point, and we'll see how it goes if you want to put that in a motion, and you put it in a motion. So I would look for a seconder. Any seconders?
Angela has seconded it.
I'll second it.
Seconded. So now we can put it on the floor for discussion. If you want to discuss, please jump in, or unfortunately, I can't see you, remember. Is anybody jumping in? Caleb?
So Jill here.
Yep.
I will be voting against the motion because it contains the setback issue.
Okay. Thanks, Jill. Anybody else want to jump in?
Yeah, I'd like to comment on the roof business that I originally brought up on the west or whatever side of the building, on the interior of the L anyway. I mentioned in my comments that this is not a deal breaker, but I just thought it would enhance the project if it was consistent on all, 8 sides or however many it's got. On the design panel, we're just a sort of a second set of eyes to look at, the form and character that has been developed over many, many months. And, as one member of the panel, that just sort of caught my eye as something that perhaps the applicant, if there was enough support from the rest of the panel members, and that remains to be seen, whether the applicant might, want to go back and just have another look, not to say that necessarily change anything, but they don't have to take our recommendation, but just to give
Would you rather say consider instead of recommend?
Oh, yes, definitely. Yes.
Okay. Then you and I were the only two we were the last two to comment on, really bring that up. So anybody else, I'd like to hear your opinions on that, and also obviously with the front setback. So Tyler, Angela, and Jason, please, if you can.
I would support that change of wording.
The wording, okay, and with the variance, you were originally not supporting the front setback relating the first one, right?
Yeah. Since it's all or nothing, I'll vote against, but I'm in favor of the remaining. But
okay.
The way it's structured.
Okay. So you're against it, and then there's just Tyler and Angela. Did Angela comment? I can't remember. No, I don't think Angela has as well. So Angela and Tyler.
Yeah, I did comment on the variances, and I was not opposed to the variances. I wonder if it would drastically affect the architecture if they did have to meet the setbacks. So, I don't have issues with this variances based on the site constraints.
And the form character?
Oh, nor the form and character.
You had no issue with recommendation or considering the inset walls, looking to enhance them?
I'm neutral on that.
Okay. So that leaves Tyler, if he's still around, even though he's not voting on this. But
thanks for including me, Kevin. No, like I said earlier, I have no issue with the variances, and if I did have a vote, I would support those recommendations as they were pointed out, and there's essentially just consider them and take a second look at them. So I think those are valid, even if I don't necessarily totally see it as one panel member does. I don't really view it as a binding.
Okay. So any other discussion? Hearing none, so it looks like there's 5 of us voting, if I'm correct. So the motion is on the floor, so we'll call the motion. All those in favor? Opposed? Caleb, I'm relying on you to see how the vote was.
Yeah, it was 3 in favor and 2 opposed.
Okay, so Jason and Jill, were you the ones opposed?
They were.
Yes.
Okay, do you want to be put on record as being opposed?
Yes.
And Jill?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Thank you. Motion carried. So thanks for the presentation, and I guess we'll move on to the next one.
Hey, Kevin, it's Tyler here. Unfortunately, just due to timing and another engagement, I have to leave here in a couple minutes. So
Okay.
I'll step out there.
So it'll be noted in the minutes that you've been removed. Thank you. Thanks, Tyler. So our next application is development permit application number 1263 at 591 Bradley Street. And I guess Caleb is going to be introducing that one as well. So Caleb.
Great, thank you. Yes. The second application on tonight's agenda, DP 1263, is for 591 Bradley Street. The property is zoned medium density residential, the R8 zone, and the applicant is proposing to construct a 5-story multifamily residential rental building with 55 dwelling units. Panel members may recall a previous proposal for the site that I believe was from 2017, originally did go to design panel. There are 3 setback requests associated with this file. One is for the underground parking structure to vary the front yard setback from 1.8 meters to 0 meters. The other is for the building front yard setback to vary from 6 meters to 4.5. And the third, I just pointed out here, is not entirely form and character related, as it does fall within another development permit area, and that is to vary the setback from the top of bank from the Millstone River from 30 meters to 0 meters. And I will point out as well that the entirety of the property is within the setback from the top of bank. And with that, it is the, I believe, the same applicants as the previous, so they will be presenting again.
Yeah, before Raymond jumps in, I just want to make sure that Kate has returned. Is she?
Yeah.
Kate's returned?
Yes, I'm
Yes,
here, Kevin.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
Didn't want to leave you out. Okay, so yeah, Raymond, go ahead, do your presentation.
Sure. Just like to introduce John Wang is the owner. He's with us as well. We got Victoria Drakeford with us this time, and Drew Biderwin, who's doing the civil work, and Atta again is going to present with this particular project. So this was an old project, like you said, from 2017. We show a couple images in the slide presentation to just kind of familiar if you weren't on design panel back at that time, but and we can describe, it's really about the riparian setbacks, which is what's been driving the design for this new version or modified version of the project. And we can talk about that a little bit more. So go ahead, Atta.
Okay. So, oh, am I online? Oh, okay. I thought I'm muted. So I guess if most of us members or you members remember or familiar with this project, we're basically going to go through like comparing mostly the proposed DP application with the original DP. So we run through it pretty quickly and get into a point where discussion what's improved in this current DP application comparing to the old version. So the subject again is on a steep slope lot at the intersection of Millstone and Bradley Street. Several key constraints of the site. One is that the whole site is being within the 30-meter City of Nanaimo aquatic setback and slopey topography, of course. And the goal here is to adopt a development that responds to the site, rather neglecting it, and with minimum impact of the existing habitat, to incorporate how to adopt the new construction with the natural habitat that's currently existing. So, and also there's a restrictive covenant existing and an access easement from east side of the property. And this is at the corner of Bradley and Millstone. Looking for the is the west corner of the lot towards east. And this is the, you can see the height difference between the grade level of the street and where the parkade, the second parkade level probably going to be. And this continuous of Bradley Street to the east. And this is looking on the opposite side towards Bradley Street West. And this is the neighboring property entrance where the access easement.
Should interrupt maybe just to be clear for the panel members that the diagram that we showed where it was access, the access is only along this little curved part there that goes out. It doesn't go into the other strata. So, just in case members of the public are looking at it. So.
And you can also see this massive wall, and we are taking advantage of having this existing wall and built on it and built beside it as a, I suppose, a parking structure. And this is looking up from the top of the Bradley Street down towards the property. And you can actually also notice the massive or dense greenery at the site. And this is looking closer to the edge, from the edge of the fence. So the proposed development is an improved version of the previous submitted DP application, keeping the similar, I guess, the similar character of the building image and functional program, but with less encroachment into the nature. We still provide two levels of parkade of underground parking that is situated on the flatter surface of the site. But the major improvement is that the building is pulled back or pushed back from the Millstone River by around 14 feet, which increased the greenery area. And there are two entrances for those parkade, solely separated without a vertical connection to control the traffic, and also to allow more of, better functional layout for the parkade. And these are the images from the original DP application. So comparing those to what we are proposing now, which is very similar in terms of image and character of the building. However, the proposed concept addresses one of the city's concerns related to the massing or the massiveness of the building looking from Millstone River. This is something we addressed by removing the entire lower story that was proposed in the original concept and keeping it more low profile. And this is at the lower level of the building, which is LB2, parkade level 2, and the access from the neighboring easement. And this is a parking level 1, which access from the Millstone. And the ground, this is a typical floor, this is the ground floor level, which consists of drop off a circular drive aisle, and also the main entrance of the building. And this is compared to the previous or original DP, which kind of like similar, other than on the contrary of the original DP, we no longer show the split space between the two masses above the ground level, which helps to increase the efficiency of the building in terms of energy efficiency or also circulation. And we still managed to break the facade of the building by creating a recessed facade while emphasizing the main entrance and drop-off. And this is a typical floor plan for L2 and L3. And we are able to accommodate solar panels on the entire roof as much as possible as a part of the integrated renewable energy system. And this is sufficient to almost sufficient to cover the power required to run the common areas. We have also incorporated public sidewalk within the site design as a part of project contribution to the city and have a continuous sidewalk that connects the site from neighboring adjacencies. And this is looking from that corner that we saw before from the existing context of the building, context of the site. And this is looking from the other corner of the building. The main entry view or human perspective of the main entrance, that kind of similar to what we proposed earlier, but without that split gap between two masses. And this is looking down from Millstone River to the towards the backside of the building. And more detailed elevation that consists of showing the material selection of the for the building that kind of differentiates the different levels and depth of the building, and enhance the also enhance the volume of each functional spaces behind them. And it continuously wrapping around the building, and we used more darker or neutral colors at the corners of the building to emphasize these masses or central masses. And comparing that to the previous original DP material selection, which we kind of changed the material selection to have like a more, I guess, contemporary look of the building. So these both perspectives shows the similarities in terms of look of the building from Bradley Street. And this is comparing the massing of the building, or the volume of the building, comparing to what we are proposing here. Taking this in principle in our conscious, the development kept the existing look and image and character of the building. And basically what we did, the elevation, this elevation comparison sheet shows the significant shrinkage of the facade between the original DP and the proposed DP by taking out the LB or the lower level that we had before. And as we shown before, each parquet level is accessed solely without vertical connection between them, to increase parquet efficiency and control the traffic flow. And those site layout, we are showing the extent of the covenant we proposed in our original DP and the face of the building. And in comparing to what we improved in our new proposal or proposed DP, we pushed back the building quite far away and avoided any building on top of the existing covenant areas. And we are proposing the extent of covenant to be rather more improved than what we are what the existing is showing. And we actually taking into consideration how to incorporate the extent of covenant and have a greenery that it's not only no build zone, but it also contributes to the existing habitat.
And the stone or the walls, there would be like stacked stone or whatever. It's not block or anything like that to enhance the habitat as well. So.
And also, if you notice that by pushing the building back, we kind of saved more, save more trees, including the significant trees that is, I'm not sure if you can see that, but it's in yellow, the yellow dot on the site.
And we should note that the trees that you see were maples. The whole site was cleared at one time, but because it's been empty for so long, the building was actually going to be built on that location. And before the townhouses got built, it was actually one long building project. So, but that was back in probably 70s or so. I can't remember now.
And so by doing that, we kind of minimize the impact of the development on the existing site and less encroachment on the natural habitat and less variance that we requested earlier in the original DP. And these project comparison sheets, you can actually see how much we improved from original DP that highlighted in red and the new DP application. And more or less, we improved by average like 20 to 30% on each category by reducing the building footprint and maximum coverage and increase the permeable areas and soft landscaping, the number of trees that needs to be cut down, and how much we increase, how we avoided building on the original or the existing covenant area. We can go through this like line by line, but as you can see that the improvement in green in the green column, it shows a significant improvement since the original DP application, and we also incorporated new features like solar panels that covers most of the available roof on the site, and also the green walls that incorporated in those concrete walls, so it won't look like a massive retaining wall exposed towards Millstone River. Incorporated bioswales, also the mechanical standards is kind of required more for water detention, and which incorporated into the bioswales, improve pedestrian safety, improve natural setbacks, and we have incorporated also a lot of environmental improvement by setting back the building way more than what we showed in the original DP application, and fewer setback variances required in this application comparing to the original one. I guess this is
Raymond, do you have anything to add? Do you want to pass it off to Victoria?
No, I think we can pass it on to Victoria. I think, like you said, we're pretty well driven in terms of trying to minimize the impact. Obviously, putting a building on a site has an impact no matter what we do, but we try to at least focus on making a better fit and be more environmentally sensitive and everything else. So, in the previous project, traffic was an issue, but we unfortunately can't really do too much about the traffic. But we do have a couple ideas that Drew can talk about that perhaps the city could look at to consider in terms of the access off of the dead portion of the road and the corner. And obviously, we've reduced the size of the building in terms of number of units and the number of parking stalls, which I think some people were hoping to see, not so dense of building. So I'll let Victoria go.
Hi, everyone. So I guess I'll just do an overall. Do you have my plan, Atar?
Yeah, we have all your drawings, yeah.
Yeah, so it's a real shame. I was looking at that plan thinking, maybe just go back to the plan, the first one, because that whole sort of pale yellow bit is actually all trees. So it's a bit of a shame that it's just more diagrammatic, but I was kind of, anyway, I think that's the most important thing to realize is that is all really dense trees. But there's a lot of, I don't know if anyone walks that area or is familiar with it. There's a lot of ivy and a lot of invasives, Daphne. So that's just the first thing I wanted to say. The whole of the Millstone has so many invasives in that. Anyhow, So basically with landscape, the design is multifaceted. There's the riparian area, so that will include a lot of invasive management, and I've done a vegetation plan, and it includes removing invasives. We have to be careful. Steve Toth is the biologist, so we have to be careful with slope erosion and doing too much traveling up and down the slope. But and then replanting in the gaps when we've removed the invasives, and then also management to allow any other regeneration of other plants to come in. Then the hatched area is, as Atta was saying, is a bioswale, and that will be also revegetated behind the Gabion wall or the stone wall, which again is more habitat opportunities. And then the bioswale will also be revegetated with indigenous plants. Then we have climbers that will go up along those foundation walls. So that's another kind of habitat as well. Then in the rest, not the rest, but then the gardens on Bradley Street, those have been reduced from the original the original DP, but they're on slabs, so they function as stormwater gathering places, and Drew can speak to that as well. They're as deep soil as I can possibly get on the slab within reason. And the idea is, it's a layered planting, a sort of little mini woodland, so it offers privacy to the residences, but it's also indigenous plants where I can, and it's nice because it's north facing, so I can probably get in a lot of indigenous plants in there. And then we've also got trellises and small places for people to meet. And again, the trellises are so we can get vines up and increase a more vertical landscape, and adding to more variety of plants. And then we've got a tiny strip along the street. So the city sidewalk actually is going to be incorporated on the property. And then we've got the boulevard where we can go in between that wall and Bradley Street and get a decent amount of soil so we can get a decent sized street tree in there. And then the other things that aren't actually on the plan, but we'd like to somehow introduce a sort of balcony gardening scheme, and also some kind of stewardship of the riparian area, of the people who live there. And that's just something will have to be developed once people live there. But I think so the idea was to introduce as much as we can, given the limited amount of space that's not the riparian area. I think that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Victoria. Is Drew there that can add any?
Yeah, I can chime in a little bit on the stormwater management and the traffic. So
we have a copy of your drawings here too.
Sure. Generally, Victoria's look better than mine, though. So
okay, whatever you want.
No, it's fine. Yeah. So stormwater management, obviously this site feeds directly into the millstone. There's an existing storm sewer that's pinned to the steep slope and discharges directly into the millstone. So both water quality and the water runoff rate is important on this site. So again, because there's limited area outside of the riparian area, we're kind of incorporating a bunch of different features to hit stormwater quality and stormwater management. As discussed, there's going to be a bioswale along the entire rear of the building, which will help both improve water quality for the water that's running off the roof, and also work to slow down that runoff to more of a pre-development rate before it enters the millstone. For any of the water that is coming off of the Bradley Street level, as Victoria said, while that is at street level, it is the roof of the parkade, so we've treated it more as a green roof. So there would be the soil depths through Victoria's planting, plus like a green roof structure underneath all of that planting to both hold and retain the water for the plants, but also again for stormwater management. And then finally, we will have a conventional stormwater detention tank on the east side of the building at that lower level to, again, just give that detention storage so we can control the rate of the runoff from the site before it enters the millstone, which will allow us to meet the engineering criteria for this site. On the traffic side, as Raymond said, there's really limited ability to implement the new city road standards, and we've talked about that both in the past development and this current development with the city. So they're aware and in agreement on the constraints of Bradley Street. And so we have included the public sidewalk on private property in order to be able to fit that element in, because it isn't currently represented on Bradley Street. And then one other major concern is, even though Bradley Street is a collector road, in most people's minds and in function, it is more of a local road given the width of it. And so to try and alleviate some of the concerns that have been raised about traffic, one option that we've proposed is essentially raising the intersection between Bradley and Milton in an effort to, slow traffic down as it comes along Bradley and up onto Millstone, and then also, to the east. So that is something that obviously is going to have to be reviewed and worked on in collaboration with the city and Nanaimo at detailed design, but just wanted to show the willingness of the owner and the developer to, work with the city to alleviate some of those concerns. I think that's the other item is, I guess it's not really related to the form and character, but as part of this development, the developer will be rebuilding the Millstone the Millstone Avenue south of Bradley Street in its entirety, as opposed to just the property side of Centerline that they're responsible for. So that's about it.
Okay, thanks, Drew. Raymond, do you want to conclude?
Just one quick little comment. I guess the Millstone Avenue, it really looks like it's the parking lot for the apartment building, but it's actually a large right-of-way. So, and all the paved areas, the driveways, those are all permeable pavers and stuff, again, to increase the permeability of the site. So by the time you look at the actual native landscaping of the covenant area and the increased covenant area, and then what areas that we have, and the soils are like probably pretty close to about 12 inches deep in spots on the parquet deck. So we try to absorb as much water and permeability as we could possibly do on the site. The only other comment I was going to say, just trying to remember now. You basically can't really see the rear facade of the building because it is so dense, especially when you're down in the park across the river, or even when you're going up along the trail. So again, city policy is there's no development or anything within that area. And in terms of environmental features, we have new requirements or how we're moving towards, because there's through the OCP review right now, is it will be no net loss, but net gain. So in terms of the environmental impact of the landscaping and the environmental qualities. So it's a change in city policy, or where the city is moving towards. So those are things that we're looking at, again, to enhance what's already there over and above in terms of the landscape walls, the stacked stones, just creating other forms of habitat, and the opportunities of people who are living right against the forest and trees to be part with nature and try and deal with the kind of the balcony landscaping idea, which is something that some places in Europe and stuff are starting to look at a little bit more closely. So, yeah.
Okay, thanks, Raymond. If you want to stop sharing your screen for starters, then I will open up to panel members if they have any questions for the city staff. Hearing none, is that correct, Caleb?
Yeah, I don't see any questions for staff.
Okay, thanks. Then we'll open up for questions for both siting, form and character, and landscape. And I'll start with Tony.
Hey, Kevin. Sorry,
Yes.
can I interrupt? I don't know if there was anything that maybe John wanted to talk about that we missed.
It's up to you.
Yeah. It's up to John, I guess. So.
No, not really, but thank you.
Okay. Sorry.
So we'll leave the if anybody has any more questions, they can ask you questions. But aside from that, thanks for your application. So I would ask Tony, if he's still there, to jump in and have your questions and comments.
Yeah, thank you very much. Excellent presentation. This is a very strong project, and it does a lot of things at the same time, and I really commend the efforts of the team in putting it together. Even the graphics were, I thought, outstanding. Just for the boilerplate, I didn't have any issues with the variances, so I would support them. They're pretty minor, for what I can see. The overall building, I think, is quite a handsome addition to that street area. Very nice, strong contemporary design. And considering the overall size of the building, because it's a huge building, I think the degree of massing articulation that you've done vertically, horizontally on all sides of the building, the colors, the variety of materials, the little wood accents and so forth, all contribute to a level of interest that is going to, totally mitigate the fact that it is a very, very big building. So I think you've done an excellent job on that aspect of it. Environmentally, I think you're doing a hell of a lot of stuff, starting with working with the slope, particularly warmed to your idea of putting the residential units on the rear side of the two parking areas to give those units extra views and vantage points, and obviously the screen parking if one could ever see it in the first place. So I thought that was well done. So creative working with that site in general. The whole idea of the amount of solar roof panel activity you've got going, the small bits even of the green roof over the entrance, and the rear green walls, I think are all commendable. And the fact that you're going for built green gold, I think is very good. I only had one question or comment, I guess, if I could. Well, overall, I think it's been just done a great job. The only thing I was looking at the plan, and that the main corridors on all your floors is kind of deadly. It's just a long, straight, unmitigated corridor. And you have windows into the stairwells at each end, but none into the corridors. And I wonder if you would give consideration to putting some glazing at the ends of the corridors from where the units leave off and the stairwell starts, because I think that would improve the massing kind of direction that the rest of the building has taken, even to the point of taking the windows out of the stairwells, if it's a sort of a cost trade-off kind of thing. And I think that would really enhance the length, or mitigate the length of that unbroken, very long corridor. So just a thought. Otherwise, I think you've done a hell of a great job. Thank you.
Thanks, Tony. Next, Angela, please.
Thank you, Kevin. Thank you guys again for your another presentation on another very constrained site. This is a significant site with a significant building, so kudos to all of the work that's gone into it so far, and amending the original DP to pull back away from the riparian or covenanted area. The project is going to be enhance the streetscape significantly and permit safer walkways along that one edge. It's pretty bleak at the moment if you want to try and walk across the street there. Not a very safe corner. I really didn't have a lot to add because there's been so much work done so far and a lot of really good work. I did think that the building would lend itself well to being sort of a showcase for green building elements, which sounds like is being incorporated, so that's awesome. And of course the solar panels and the green roof at the entryway. So I did like the idea of trying to integrate the balcony landscaping. I think that would be really nice feature on that, especially from the park to the building. I think that would be a nice way to break up the massive building. Looking at the design guidelines for steep slope, it does look to support stepped balconies at the rear. I don't know that it's really something that's possible with this without losing a whole bunch of units. So we'll just leave it at that. Otherwise, yeah, it's a great project and well done. And thank you.
Thanks, Angela. Next up, Tyler, please. Oh, he's gone, isn't he?
Tyler has left. That's correct.
Okay, sorry. Kate.
Okay, thank you, Kevin, and thank you for your presentation. I don't have much to add. I didn't see the project when it was originally presented. I wasn't on the panel. But I think you've done a great job of working with this extremely constrained site. And I would say the one benefit of your situation is we can end up getting a more restored setback area. And I think that's actually a great thing. And it wouldn't happen without this development happening here. And so I think with what you're doing, you've done the best with the site. My only comment, having not seen the previous building, I really did enjoy that opening in the middle of the original concept. And I wondered, there was something really nice about that. I know you still have the communal deck, common space at the street level going out, but there was something nice about that. And I know surely there's reason for it. And I'm sure you articulated that earlier and I might have missed it, but I was sort of disappointed I didn't have that view through like it seemed you had in the original concept. And my only other sort of area is that the view of the parkade entry that comes off of the easement of the smaller townhomes, and their view is quite a wall of building, and so maybe some further. I'm not sure because you have the two levels of parking. You're doing the green walls up that angled planter. I'm just wondering, that wall, maybe that Tony was talking about the corridors, if there's further glazing. I'm not sure on that one side of the building. I don't know what can be done, but that's one view that I think will be very imposing to that existing property, and I'm not quite sure how it can be mitigated any further, but that's the only one that is like, oh, geez, that doesn't look good for those neighboring properties. Whereas I think the building will actually help the street have some, bringing it up to grade and adding that sidewalk is going to greatly improve this street. And I drive it often and very familiar with it. And I do think the idea of possibly raising that corner, there's some merit there, and I think that could really help as well, because it is as noted, a slow zone, but no one really abides to that speed. And I think your project will actually improve the driving conditions and the way people move through there. And I'm looking forward to seeing it. I suppose my only recommendation is that east elevation, and if there's anything further that can be done to mitigate the mass of it to the adjacent townhomes because they're so much smaller. That's all, but thank you and great.
Raymond, do you want to comment on any of Kate's suggestions there?
I think I caught most of it. I got kicked out one more time. So in terms of mitigation, I guess the townhouses are facing there don't really have too many windows. It's not an excuse. Other than bringing some plantings up that particular wall, perhaps. One of the things that we can look at in terms of the glazing, there is some glazing at the ends of the corridors and in the middle of the corridor. I think as we fiddled around with the end units, as we're trying to squish the building and try and flatten it in terms of its depth, we were just being cognizant, not to say that we can't put sprinklers in glazing, but we were just being conscious at this point of trying to be 3 meters away or 10 feet away from fire protection between the corridor and the adjacent little units in the front that face Bradley Street. But we certainly can look at that a little bit more. So, yep.
Okay, thanks. And nothing else, Kate, is that correct?
No, thank you. Yeah.
Did you comment on the variances at all?
Oh, I don't have a problem with the variances.
Okay, thank you. Jason, please.
All right, thank you, Kevin. Thank you to the project team for your presentation. I think this is actually a very successful project. I really like what you've done, and I just wanted to commend you because the massing is, straight from the party of the project, and from a planning perspective, I like how it's laid out along, the simple principles of a double-loaded corridor, but you've just not plugged in some of the pieces along the street side, and the restraint to not do that, just to not fill those in, I commend. So I think it really lends some interest and and breaks down the massing of the project, particularly from the street edge. So congratulations on that. My only concern was exactly what Kate just said, that 6-story kind of facade on the east elevation, maybe looking at a way to help kind of break that up so that it's not quite so relentless, but otherwise I think very successful, and like I said, I commend you very much. So thank you.
And Jason, any
no issue with the variances.
Okay,
yeah,
thank you. Jill, please.
So I have no issue with the variances, and I would like to commend the project team for all they have accomplished. I was not on the design advisory panel when this first came through. It's wonderful to listen and hear everyone's comments about the transition and the end game here with the environmental and habitat accomplishments are pretty wonderful for all of us. I am going to make a comment. Given the strength of the architecture, given the siding, I am finding and also understanding that it is providing some green, and what I'm going to say is going to take away some green, but I am finding the trellises very distracting. I like the massing of the building. I like the strength of the building. The street trees are awesome. As Kate knows, I like to maybe toss one element in favor of implementing higher or stronger caliper trees at the front end to get the landscape established. And my comment is, I think overall, just in terms of the design and the street scenario with those trellises, I would comment that maybe the one closer to the parking garage, when I think about form follows function, they are trellises, they are pergolas. They are not going to stop the rain for anyone. They're not going to be, they're transient gathering places. And maybe could we select one and develop it further with side benches or with a covering. I don't know if there's a bus route along here that we might support, but I'm just finding all four of them very distracting, and would like to see perhaps one of them more fully developed. Thank you.
Thanks, Jill. Victoria, do you want to comment on Jill's comments, please?
Yeah, and thank you for the comment, and it's good to have other perspectives. I think one of the things is, and especially now the building has moved so close to the street, I'm very aware of the traffic, and we've moved the actual public sidewalk onto private property. There's a lot of people walking by that don't belong. Well, I shouldn't say that, they do belong, but they're not part of it's public. It's not even semi-private, right? So my feeling was to get as much sort of defenses, if you like, to get, and I'm very conscious of getting more area for plants. So you get a more variety of plants, you get more diversity of plants. And I feel that if you're living there, it just adds another layer of privacy or of shielding from cars. And the other thing is, I'm very conscious of creating gardens for people. And by gardens, I don't mean vegetable gardens. I mean in a traditional sense of a garden. And some of the elements of that. And then the other, so that's another element I wanted to introduce into a sort of private space. And then the other element is in terms of canopy. Yes, I agree with you, big trees, but trellises work to give scale to people when you have a big building that close, and it allows you to reduce the scale of that building. And I can't get a lot of big trees on the parking side. I can only get them along the street, but I can't get them between the building and that sidewalk. So I'm using them as a vertical element because I can't put trees. I don't have enough soil to put bigger trees on the podium. So they're sort of accomplishing a lot of different functions.
Yes, I would say too, because the renders are not polished renders, so we don't see all the plants, we just see what looks like green grass everywhere. So it's hard to visualize what that would really look like, especially when you look at the previous presentation that we did. Like the landscaping comes a little bit more alive when we see it all kind of look realistic. So I think, and I can blame the architect for not showing all the landscaping as well, but I think that's part of it that makes it maybe not look as good. Yeah, we had more benches and stuff before when we had more room, but Victoria, because we were squishing to do with the riparian, it made it a bit more challenging for her to deal with just how much does the public sit on what is essentially private property. So it's a bit of a toss up there, right? So it's like, do you really want to allow a lot of people to hang around in front of your unit or whatever, right? I mean, many people are nice, but some people may not be so nice to people that have to live there. So,
and thanks, Jill. If you can just maybe just comment on their responses to that and whether or not you want to put anything in the form of a recommendation, please.
I think I would like to develop a recommendation. I thank you both very much for your comments, and we're rationalizing as a landscape architect as well. It seems odd that I would perhaps suggest removing these elements, but I live in a building quite like this at the corner of one of your designs, Victoria, and we don't have these trellises. And I guess my struggle with them is that we're trying to scale down. We're looking at a very kind of residential element to scale down a very urban building. And it just doesn't, it's very distracting to me, and it just doesn't work for me. It's like trying to avoid putting our big boy and big girl pants on and saying that the front of this is an urban solution that we have to work with. And, you know, so it's just distracting. And the comment around, you know, do we want people sitting? Well, we have sitting areas where I live, and yeah, they're used by different sorts of people, but you know, we quite often on the design advisory panel talk about gathering spaces, and yeah, we haven't accomplished that here, really.
So I'm waiting to hear a recommendation.
I would just say,
and try to keep it general if you can. Not
yes, consider the cost benefit, or not necessarily the cost. It's not the cost that I'm around here that I'm on about, more the benefit of landscape trellis solutions versus, you know, embracing an urban situation.
We understand
where's Marie?
What you're saying. Yeah.
Where's Marie? She could help me with this, but you know, my concern is that they're a distracting element, and I'm not convinced that they're accomplishing anything
Okay. So if
to the degree that we need them to.
Jill, if I was just to write it as consider the benefit of trellises versus other urban solutions in the landscape concept, would that be okay to sum it up in general?
Or maybe other planting solutions.
Other plantings, okay. Instead of urban.
You could say urban design solutions if you wish.
Well, other urban planting solutions?
They may not necessarily be planting, but yeah, urban planting solutions, I guess.
Okay, yeah, okay. Consider the benefit of trellises versus other urban planting solutions. Does that sum it up? Okay, thank you very much. That leaves me, I guess, unless somebody else wants to jump in later. And I definitely commend you for how you jump back so quickly, Raymond, and your team. I was disappointed when the first application got rejected, and what Kate mentioned regarding especially the glazing on the front and how it viewed straight through. I was really looking forward to seeing that, but I do really thank you for how you and your team really jumped in and jumped on board with all the environmental green solutions. I like how your use in your forming character of using soft colors. Normally, I don't like to see soft colors. I usually like to see more bold and dramatic colors, but I think in this particular setting, I think it's going to work much better. And I fully support the variances. You can work to a 1.25 floor area ratio. You only work to a 0.75. And this neighborhood's changing already up above, a few streets up, going across. There's lots of multifamily going in. And the site on the corner of Millstone and Town Site, that big parkade with a small commercial building, eventually that's going to get knocked down, and they'll be probably put something up very similar in its place. So this neighborhood is really ripe for development, and obviously in theory you're not able to build on this site because you have no place to build on it. The setback is up on the street. So I think you did a great job with your effort and everything you've done, and Drew's involvement too regarding stormwater management. I think it's going to be a great project. I really like the landscape concept. Obviously, Victoria doesn't have much to work with, but she does have that total buffer area that she can work and enhance that area, get rid of the invasives. My only question to Victoria is, I have really bad reading eyesight, even though I wear reading glasses. And it appears in your tree palette that all the trees on the front are deciduous. Is that correct?
Yes.
And you didn't consider trying to blend sort of the transition from the buffer area by putting in some like Serbian spruce or anything like that in those areas?
I don't have any soil depth, Kevin. The only place I can put any trees in is along the street, and I don't really want to put conifers as a street tree in that location. But no, I just don't have enough soil depth.
Okay. I just had to ask because it's one of the questions.
No, it's a good question, and I agree with you, but it's just I just can't put them in.
Okay. That answers my question, and I don't want to see a bunch of dead evergreens. So aside from that, I have nothing else to add other than the comments that were done before, and I think this is a very good project. So well done, you guys. Thank you very much. So does anybody else on the panel have any other questions or anything they want to add to this?
Excuse me, Kevin, this is Kate. I just had a question. I was just thinking about Jill's recommendation and wondered if I think this neighborhood is still extremely residential, and I think I kind of feel like the trellises and that detail actually help this building integrate with some of the other character that's in this neighborhood. It is a neighborhood of a lot of smaller, older homes, and some are going to remain. You can tell by the care and attention that has been put into them. And so that I found it actually a good transitional element for the neighborhood. And I'm not sure about using the word urban here. I don't really consider this highly it feels still very residential. It's just different densities of residential. I guess that's still urban. I don't know.
So you're saying that you support the landscape concept existing with the trellises and arbors?
Well, yes, especially knowing the traffic and coming around that corner and the lights, and that it's a 90-degree turn. And that I think they will have a good mitigating effect to the street.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I'm in agreement with that. And so unless anybody else has anything else to discuss, maybe we can go across the board here and people can jump in to say whether they like the trellises as the way the landscape concept shows, or whether or not they agree with Jill's recommendation. We can put this in a motion and we can discuss it and provide friendly amendments, but I think it just might be easier if everybody jumps in and decides right now whether or not they would support Jill's recommendation.
I don't know as much as if this is Jill's recommendation as making an observation and going on the record. So we can pull it if you like.
Well, it's only Kate and I that agree, that like the trellises. So if other people jump in and they support it, we'll put it in the recommendation. So don't back off too quickly, Jill.
I'd like to jump in and just say that I think the rationale of the massing transition for me is the main reason to keep those trellises. I don't see them as kind of a deal breaker either way, but given the way that that Victoria described that sort of transitional thing from a large building down to street level, and in context with some of the other older, smaller places that are around it, I don't see them as being out of place.
Okay, and Angela or Jason, do you want to jump in?
Yeah, I agree with Tony. I don't mind the trellises, and in fact, I like how it pulls some of the materiality, the wood features off the building into the landscape. So I don't mind the trellises at all.
Okay, thanks, Jason. Angela, do you want to add anything?
No, just that I don't disagree with having them there, and I do like the idea of the transition because it is quite a residential neighborhood, and just to promote that sort of transition into the multifamily, I do agree that I don't have any issue with them, and I didn't mention that I didn't if I supported the variances or not. So I do support the variances based on the constraints of this site.
Okay, thanks, Angela. So Jill, do you mind if if it comes forward and it will be in the staff comments or the minutes that you had concerns about the trellises, so it will be there. And obviously Victoria and Raymond have heard your concerns, so obviously maybe they might go back to the drawing board, who knows? So even though it might not be a consideration or a recommendation, at least it's there for you. And it's just one of those things. It's either you like it or you feel strongly one way or the other. So there's nothing wrong with bringing that up. So thank you for that.
I have a question about one thing that I'm unclear about that really hasn't been discussed is the site lighting. And I'm seeing a detail in the seat walls. And so I don't know where, this on page 59, the seat walls and the low level lighting. Could somebody just quickly tell me where that happens? Because
we'd have to look at the drawings to be exactly clear. Were they on your drawings or ours, Victoria? Oh. I don't have Victoria's drawings in front of me.
I can open up Victoria's drawings.
Yeah, they aren't. I don't know that they're detailed on those ones. The idea was,
but because we have a podium that has to be planted and it's roughly about a foot deep in many spots, we're going to have lots of opportunity for wall lamps along the edge, or step lights, I guess we call them, all along the path, right? Again, to not compete with the lights that are on the street, because it is a residential and we can't benefit from the general street lights for the public sidewalk, which is usually closer to the center line of the road.
Hey. Thank you.
Yeah, it was just generally throughout the site along the little planting walls. Yeah.
Yeah, obviously with a site as difficult as this, it's very difficult to plan and strategize site lighting. It's almost, as an excavation stage discussion that you need to bring up, because you can propose something, but inevitably with site lighting, especially, I think you're going to be dealing with most of it later as more of the final details get discussed. So that said, unless panel members have anything else they want to discuss. Hearing none. So basically we have two recommendations, and Tony, you can decide if you want to put this one in, but you wanted to consider adding glazing at the hallway ends.
No, I was just sort of musing over whether the corridor could stand a little bit of mitigation. So
you're just putting that in just as a comment, so we won't have that in there as recommendation.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, good. And it will be recognized by Raymond. He's heard your comment. And the only other one, so this will be the only recommendation, was consider ways to reduce the massing of the east elevation. And I believe that was it, unless somebody else has anything else to add. And it seems like there was full support for the variances, even though we can say variances, but what it says in the staff comments is we're really not supposed to comment on the watercourse setback because that's under review from a different party. But being that there are two front setback variances, I believe we can say variances. So if somebody would like to make a motion to accept the application as presented with support for the variances and consider ways to reduce the massing of the east elevation, I believe that would be it. If someone wants to make that or anything else.
So moved.
Jason, do I have a seconder? Looking for a seconder.
I'll second it.
Jill?
Mhm.
Okay. Any further discussion on this? Hearing, then we'll call the motion. All those in favor? Opposed? Caleb?
Unanimous in favor.
Okay, carried. Perfect. Thank you much. Thank you very much, you guys.
Thank you, panel. Thank you, John, for being patient with us, and thanks for the team for doing a good job. So,
Thanks, Ray.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye.
Okay, so now we
Thanks,
move.
everyone.
So now we move on to, once everybody is cleared out there, other business, and it's regarding Tony's comment about alternating chairs, and maybe Caleb, are you the only one there, Caleb?
Yeah, and I have taken a note here to Tony's earlier comment on just following up and looking at what the options are for having rotating chair or alternate chairs. So if that is the direction from the design panel, I can follow through with that prior to the next meeting.
Okay. So do we need a motion on that, Caleb, that staff review rotating chairs, or do you just want to take it?
Might as well put it as a motion just so it is captured. Yep.
Okay. So Tony, do you want to make a motion to have staff look into I guess, whether or not we're permitted to have rotating chairs within our guidelines?
Yeah, I'll move that. Just for an investigation.
Okay, and can I get a seconder on that, please?
I'll second, Kevin. That's Kate.
Okay, it's second. Okay, any other further discussion on it?
Nope. But I did want to thank you for chairing today. I was willing.
Well, you can get the next one.
Okay.
So,
thank you, Kevin.
And I think in my discussions, I think it'd be great if the main chair is in there. No, maybe we do have to have a co-chair or maybe two co-chairs or whatever. But I think the experience people gain from being a chair is really great, because one, you talk more, you listen more, and I think everybody's experience and their knowledge and what they gain from being on the design advisory panel improves by being a chair. So we have that. No other further discussion from anybody else? Hearing none, then we'll call the motion. All those in favor? Opposed? Caleb?
None opposed.
Carried. Perfect.
Okay, night, everyone.
That's pretty well it. So motion to adjourn. We don't have to vote on it. We're informal here. So thank you, everybody, for coming.
See you next time.
Thank you, everyone.
Good night.
Have a good night.
Good night.